Welcome back to Seat Time, and no, I am not doing the Macarena. That is me opening up my forearms. I like to bend them backwards just a little bit, shake them out, make sure the blood flow is going. But when we've got about 5 seconds left, guys, this is going to be test number 7 from the Red Rivers Dirt Rider Enduro that took place a few weeks ago. That is Coulson Kovar, and I'm already disliking my line choices because I'm following him to the inside instead of knowing that going to the outside is a way that I can carry more speed. When you're in a situation like this, you do not have to follow the rider that is in front of you. Just because they're taking a line does not mean that it's the best line. Look here, I cut hard to the inside of this tree. I could have carried a ton more speed if I'd have gone further to the outside and swooped in on that turn. This is where they cut us off from test 3 earlier. So for test 7, they cut 2 miles off of test 3. I'm gonna show you guys the little places where Coulson starts to drop me, the places where I start to carry back up to him, but just think the entire time how interesting it is. Even though he does beat me for sure, he beats me by about 16 minutes. So even those times where he looks like he's creeping away, he's actually not that far ahead of me. I say that so that y'all don't get discouraged in future enduros, that when someone starts to pull away, remember, keep attacking. Keep trying to use that pull as long as you can. Keep them in sight down the trail. Following his dust up to this point was difficult, but I knew that we were going to get to a little bit more technical spots here about 1.5 miles in. So I was trying to make sure that I could stay close enough so that as we hit the little bit weavier, a little bit rockier, tighter sections, let's say twistier, let's say more technical, they weren't really that tight, that I could catch back up. And you can kind of see that now. I've probably brought that from about 8 seconds down to about 4 seconds. I'm pretty much on his rear wheel, minus a few bike lengths. I don't know if you heard me talking to myself, but I was like, come on, come on. And it's because I could tell that I was just lightly under attacking in some of those areas. And I knew that we could jump up into this field, but you could tell once we got up there that his dust trail was there without him. I knew I needed to make sure that I could turn it back on so that he didn't continue to pull away. I'm not gonna lie, riding as fast as we were in this section did spook me a little bit. If you listen to my rear brake and the tire drag, you could hear me lose a lot of momentum in that section up until us getting in here, of course, then making that mistake right there. But that is what allowed Coulson to pull away from me. I don't feel that he was carrying a lot more speed than I was, but I knew once we got back into this section, it was a little bit tighter and a little bit twistier, and that I should have a chance to catch back up, which I did. But again, at this point, it's just making up a second or two, where when we get into the open and get into the more faster sections, he's able to make that time back up. So it was definitely a game of cat and mouse. You heard my expletive back there, and that's because coming out of that turn, I knew I should have faded more to the left, because to the right where I went was a lot more rough, and it was also kind of a divot, where out to the left it was a lot smoother. And you can see now that there's a lot less dust in the air, so Coulson is pulling away from me. But again, it's not that far. When it really opens up, or if you would look between the trees, you can still kind of see him every now and again. But I do have to remind you guys, you can see so much better on the GoPro for whatever reason through the dust than you can in person. So even though it doesn't look that bad, it's pretty bad in person. If you haven't seen Lead Belt, go watch that one from this year and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I wanted to give a shout out to some of the other racers from this section, because the time that I went through this 5.2 mile section was about 15 minutes to get through that. And I was 15th overall, and I was first in my class. So go me, cool. JD Reed was just a tad bit faster than me by 2 seconds. And then right in front of him was Jeremy Knuckle. It's so crazy that those guys were 2 seconds in front of me, and they were hundredths of a second apart. In front of them was Noah Willett. And then we had another close battle between JoJo Toole, Kosin Kovar, and Jake James, all being kind of in that 14:37 to 14:45. But there were a couple other battles in there. So Jake Ingram and Ryan Huddleston, 14:28 and a 14:28. Again, hundredths of a second apart. You move up in front of that, Zach Ingram and John Gentry, 14 minutes and 4 seconds. So just right there. And then, of course, we had the Michaela brothers being about 2 seconds apart. And then Grady Peavy winning that section with a 13:41. So he beat me by a minute and 20 seconds. Just absolutely insane. I love this little section coming up because it kind of just weaves through the trees. It's nice and dark. It feels like it's tight. Obviously, it's not that tight, but it just breaks up a lot of the openness that we've been riding through. You can tell that Coulson has definitely left me, but what's going to happen here is you're going to see I'm going to wind off to the left, and if you look out into the open, you can see some dust and a white. That is actually him out there. So again, he's really only about 12 seconds out there in front of me at this point. And since we come through at about 16 seconds, he either gains a little bit more time on me, or maybe this is about that right here. So I saw him and I said, okay, I've got to try to pick it up. Unfortunately, I forgot about that right-hand turn, but we just kept giving it. It does get a little bit more technical in here. I did have a couple time with some lappers getting around, but in the long run, we just kind of had to keep making it work. All right, guys, we're almost there. I'm not going to talk through much through the rest of this, but this section is so much fun. It is flowy. It's backwards from years past. It's just a good time. Listen to the bike, listen to how I'm riding, see what you can learn if there's anything, or let me know how I can step it up a little. Man, watching that last little section of me zipping through is so cool. I hope you guys appreciated this. Definitely give it a subscribe. Make sure you watch the full recap. Enjoy getting seat time, and we'll see you for the next one.